Nafisa Collier didn't just leak a conversation. She detonated Kathy Engelbert's career. The WNBA commissioner was already skating on thin ice after months of tension with Caitlin Clark and the league's most vocal stars. But once Collier exposed Engelbert's unfiltered thoughts, mocking Clark, downplaying player concerns, and insisting athletes should be grateful for their paychecks, the entire facade crumbled in real time.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
The backlash was immediate. Collier refused to meet with her. Clark broke her silence in a public exit interview. Sophie Cunningham added fuel to the fire, calling out Engelbert's self-serving leadership. And when Stephen A. Smith and Scott Van Pelt both used their platforms to question her authority, that wasn't criticism. That was a televised vote of no confidence. Kathy Engelbert is now the most isolated figure in women's sports leadership, rejected by the players, eviscerated by the media, and quietly boxed out by the NBA itself. Adam Silver, who handpicked Engelbert to run the WNBA, is reportedly weighing his options. Because this is no longer about bad press, it's about league survival. The irony? Engelbert tried to silence the league's most powerful voices to preserve control. Instead, she's triggered the loudest player uprising the WNBA has ever seen. The athletes aren't just demanding change, they're naming names and drawing lines. Engelbert isn't a misunderstood executive. She's a symbol of what players are rejecting. With names like Nancy Lieberman and Sandy Brondello circulating as possible replacements, the message is clear. The league doesn't just need a new commissioner. It needs a new direction, one rooted in actual respect, not optics. Engelbert's downfall isn't tragic. It's overdue. For a league built on empowerment, her leadership became the exact thing it claimed to fight against. Now the WNBA is staring down a crossroads, and Engelbert is nowhere near the road forward. Kathy Engelbert's fall from grace isn't just happening. It's unraveling in front of everyone, faster than the WNBA can contain it. After months of quietly building tension, failed leadership, and dismissed concerns, the situation has exploded. And it's no longer just about poor management. It's about a league in crisis, and a commissioner now exposed as the root of the dysfunction. The turning point? Nafisa Collier's leaked conversation. In that private discussion, Engelbert allegedly made dismissive remarks about Caitlin Clark, belittled the players' value, and told them they should be grateful for their salaries. Grateful for being underpaid, undervalued, and overexposed without adequate league support. That leak didn't just reveal Engelbert's attitude. It confirmed every suspicion players and fans have been raising for months. It was the match that lit the powder keg. The reaction from the players was swift and public. Nafisa Collier didn't just leak the conversation. She then refused to meet with Engelbert, rejecting her authority altogether. That alone sent a message loud and clear. The trust was broken, and players were no longer interested in pretending otherwise. Then Caitlin Clark, the league's breakout star, and the one person who has arguably done more to grow the WNBA's visibility than anyone else in recent history, added her voice to the outrage. She didn't mince words. In her exit interview, she emphasized the need for better leadership and more respect for players. That wasn't just a critique. That was a declaration. When your most marketable, most impactful player starts openly questioning league leadership, there's no more hiding. The locker room knows. The media knows. The fans know. And at that point, Engelbert's position becomes indefensible. What made it worse was Engelbert's response, or lack thereof. Her statements were weak, dismissive, and completely disconnected from the urgency of the situation. Instead of acknowledging the damage, she tried to explain it away. She denied the tone of the conversation. She tried to redirect. And in doing so, she proved exactly why the players no longer believed in her leadership. Major analysts didn't hold back either. Stephen A. Smith, Scott Van Pelt, and others condemned her actions, calling her out on national television. It wasn't just critical, it was personal. Engelbert wasn't being painted as a flawed leader trying to recover. She was being labeled a failure who had lost control and damaged the league's credibility in the process. The criticism wasn't abstract. It was specific and it was damning. Players rejecting meetings, stars calling for change, media calling for resignation, and fans flooding social media demanding that Engelbert step down before the league lost everything it had gained. Because here's what was at stake: growth, investment, and legitimacy. The WNBA has spent years fighting for relevance. It finally had it. Ratings were up. Media attention was consistent. New fans were engaging. A star like Caitlin Clark had drawn the spotlight. And with that spotlight came new opportunities for expansion and investment. But instead of capitalizing on that moment, Engelbert fumbled it. Her leadership style, top-down, dismissive, and control-obsessed, undermined everything. Rather than listening to the players and respecting their influence, she saw them as threats to the structure she wanted to maintain. That's why the backlash wasn't just emotional. It was practical. The league cannot grow with leadership that's openly at odds with its most important stakeholders. And now the pressure is on Adam Silver to act. As NBA commissioner, Silver has been publicly supportive of the WNBA, but that support now comes with a cost. Every day Engelbert remains in power, it reflects poorly on both leagues. Her failure isn't just a WNBA problem anymore. It's threatening the entire basketball ecosystem. Sources close to the league are already pointing to an impending leadership change. Reports from outlets like The Athletic suggest Engelbert is on the brink, and the names being floated as successors aren't coming out of nowhere. Nancy Lieberman and Sandy Brondello are the frontrunners in the conversation, and for good reason. Lieberman is respected across generations. A basketball lifer with decades of credibility, she brings not only experience, but a deep understanding of what it means to lead from within the culture, not above it. She has the ability to restore trust where it's been lost, because she's earned it, not demanded it. Brondello, meanwhile, has proven herself both as a coach and a unifier. She's not flashy. She doesn't need to be. What she offers is competence, integrity, and the ability to actually listen to players, a skill that Engelbert never demonstrated. Both are seen by players as real options, not figureheads, not corporate placeholders, real leaders who respect the game and the people who play it. And that's what the WNBA needs now, urgently. Because this crisis isn't just about optics. It's about morale. If Engelbert stays, more players could speak out. More sponsors could pull away. More fans could disengage. The league cannot afford to let this spiral any further. It doesn't have the margin for that kind of sustained damage. Caitlin Clark, Nafisa Collier, and Sophie Cunningham have already shown what a player-led shift looks like. They've called for change not because of ego or drama, but because they see the future of the league being held back by leadership that doesn't understand or respect their value. And now, the public is behind them. Engelbert's standing is beyond repair. Her authority has been rejected, not only privately, but publicly by the people who matter most. That's not something you come back from. It's a sign that the league has evolved, and she hasn't. The WNBA is entering a new era, whether she's ready for it or not. Athletes are no longer just players. They're advocates, leaders, and entrepreneurs. They want a league that reflects that. They want governance that evolves with the game, not leadership that clings to outdated ideas of control and hierarchy. And the fans, old and new, aren't going to tolerate a commissioner who disrespects the very people responsible for growing the game. Not when the alternative is right in front of them. Not when there's finally momentum, finally excitement, finally the opportunity to move forward. The longer Engelbert stays, the more that momentum is at risk. And at this point, there's no reason to wait. The writing is on the wall. The trust is gone. The league is ready to turn the page. All that's left now is for Adam Silver to act, and for the WNBA to finally give its players the leadership they deserve. What do you think? Should Engelbert be removed immediately? Is the damage already done? Or can the league recover if a new commissioner steps in now? And would Lieberman or Brondello be the right choice to take the WNBA into its next chapter? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe for more breaking sports, controversy, and drama-fueled leadership takedowns. Because if this situation has shown anything, It's that when players speak up and the truth gets out, everything changes. Kathy Engelbert is no longer leading the WNBA. She's clinging to a title while the foundation collapses underneath her. Her authority isn't just questioned anymore. It's actively being rejected by the very people she's supposed to represent. And now it's not just about bad press or a leaked conversation or another tone-deaf quote. It's about a league on the brink of transformation and a commissioner completely unprepared for what's coming next. Because the moment Nafisa Collier pulled back the curtain and exposed Engelbert's private remarks, her dismissive comments about Caitlin Clark, her claim that players should be grateful for their pay, her controlling, defensive tone, it wasn't just a scandal. It was a confirmation, a receipt, the validation of every frustration players and fans had quietly carried for months. And Engelbert didn't even try to deny it with strength. She went the weakest route possible. She deflected. She played the victim. She dodged accountability in every public appearance. Instead of leading, she just tried to survive. It didn't work. Because when players stop showing up to meetings, when rising stars like Caitlin Clark start questioning your leadership, when voices like Sophie Cunningham call you delusional to your face in public, you've already lost. Leadership doesn't come from title. It comes from trust. And Kathy Engelbert has burned through every last bit of it. And now, all eyes are on Adam Silver. Because this crisis is no longer something the WNBA can contain on its own. The backlash is bleeding into NBA territory. And Silver, whether he likes it or not, is being pulled into the mess. The league he oversees is now connected to a commissioner who's turned player empowerment into a threat and transparency into a liability. Let's be clear, this didn't need to happen. This league was at its highest point in years. Ratings were up. Public interest was finally where it needed to be. Caitlin Clark had become the face of the sport overnight. Sponsors were leaning in. Broadcast networks were expanding coverage. The WNBA had momentum. But instead of building on that momentum, Engelbert chose to micromanage it. She treated player popularity as a problem to contain, not an opportunity to elevate. And in doing so, she exposed the league's biggest weakness, a leadership structure that resists progress instead of embracing it. This is why Engelbert has become the symbol of everything that needs to change. Her comments weren't just insulting. They were strategic. They revealed a mindset that's been driving her decisions all along. Keep control at all costs. Minimize individual influence. Keep players in their place. Dismiss concerns. Maintain the brand over the people. And now, the people are fighting back. Nafisa Collier's refusal to even meet with Engelbert was a statement of total rejection. Caitlin Clark voicing her desire for better leadership wasn't just a critique, it was a warning. And when players at every level started calling for Engelbert's resignation, it became clear, this isn't reparable. So now we're talking about next steps. Not if Engelbert will be replaced, but when. And the names surfacing as potential successors are no coincidence. Nancy Lieberman, Sandy Brondello. These aren't political picks. They're basketball people, trusted, respected, deeply connected to the sport, and more importantly, to the players. They represent what Engelbert never could, leadership that listens. Lieberman, a pioneer in women's basketball, doesn't need to prove her commitment. She's lived this game for decades. She understands the pressures, the pay gaps, the media battles, the culture wars. And she knows how to navigate them without turning her back on the people doing the work. Brondello brings a different kind of credibility, calm, steady, and experienced. She's coached. She's mentored. She's built teams that win without breaking trust. She's not flashy. She's consistent. And right now, the WNBA could use some of that. The point is, players want leadership that reflects them, not someone who dismisses their concerns in private and spins fake unity in public. They want someone who sees their value, not someone who treats their influence as a threat. Kathy Engelbert had every chance to be that kind of leader. She chose not to be. Instead of empowering voices like Caitlin Clark's, she tried to downplay them. Instead of standing behind her players during the league's most public controversies, she stayed silent. And instead of taking responsibility when things fell apart, she pushed the blame everywhere else. That's not leadership. That's damage control. And it's not working anymore. Because this crisis is no longer contained within the league, it's national. The sports world is watching. The media is engaged. Fans are fed up. Sponsors are paying attention. And every day Engelbert stays in power, the WNBA loses a little more credibility. This is why so many are calling on Adam Silver to step in. This is no longer just a WNBA issue. It's a basketball issue, a sports governance issue, a public trust issue. Silver has the platform, the influence, and now the responsibility to end this quietly and quickly before it spirals further. And make no mistake, it will spiral further. Because the players aren't backing down. The fans aren't letting go. The media isn't losing interest. This isn't one bad headline. It's a cultural shift. It's the exposure of a broken system and the people who've had to live under it. There's no more room for spin. No more time for damage control. No more empty statements. The league needs new leadership. Period. It needs a commissioner who doesn't view athletes as subordinates, but as partners. It needs someone who values communication over control. Someone who knows how to handle growth and isn't scared of star power. Someone who doesn't have to be exposed to be transparent. That's what the players are asking for. That's what the league deserves. And that's what Cathy Engelbert can never offer. So what happens next? If Engelbert steps down or is removed, there's still a long road ahead. Trust has to be rebuilt. Relationships have to be repaired. A new commissioner will have to walk into a league that's wounded, frustrated, and watching closely. But that's still better than what happens if she stays. Because if Engelbert stays, the damage continues. More leaks, more tension, more walkouts, more public rejection, and eventually, it won't be just players calling for change. It'll be fans walking away altogether. That's what's on the line. Not just a nameplate on a desk, but the future of the league. Cathy Engelbert has had her moment. She's made her decisions. She's shown us who she is and what kind of leadership she offers. Now it's time to decide what kind of league the WNBA wants to be. A league run by fear, control, and backroom politics? Or a league built on respect, accountability, and player-first values? The clock is ticking. And this time, the players aren't waiting for permission to speak. They already have. At this point, the WNBA's biggest liability isn't its lack of funding, media exposure, or fan engagement. It's Cathy Engelbert. She's not just dragging the league into controversy. She is the controversy. Every day she stays in her role, the situation becomes more unstable. Not because of some abstract optics, but because the actual foundation of the WNBA, its players, have turned their backs on her. They've stopped pretending. They've stopped playing the media game. They're no longer whispering their frustrations behind closed doors. They're done. And that's the story. The end of Cathy Engelbert's leadership isn't a maybe. It's not a rumor. It's not a crisis that might go away. It's here. It's active. And it's being driven by the very people who make the WNBA worth watching. When you have players like Nafi Sakalya refusing to sit in the same room as the commissioner, what does that tell you? When Caitlin Clark, the league's most valuable and marketable asset, uses her platform to publicly demand better leadership, what does that say? When veterans like Sophie Cunningham stop pulling punches and start calling Engelbert delusional on record, how much louder does it have to get? This isn't about bad vibes or bruised egos. It's about leadership failure at the highest level of a professional league. And no amount of PR spin can undo the fact that the trust is gone. Let's go back to that leak conversation. The moment it hit the press, the floodgates opened. Engelbert, in her own words, allegedly dismissed players' concerns, downplayed Caitlin Clark's impact, and pushed a narrative that players should feel grateful for what little they've been given. That moment didn't just break the silence. It revealed a rot. And once the players saw that rot, they stopped playing along. That's what makes this so different from past controversies. The response wasn't timid. It wasn't cautious. It was decisive. Players stood up, took the microphone, and said no more. They refused to protect a system that never protected them. And Cathy Engelbert? She had no answer. No plan. Just a defensive press tour that made everything worse. She tried to reframe herself as misunderstood. She downplayed the backlash. She deflected accountability. And in doing so, she confirmed the exact problem. She doesn't get it. She doesn't understand what leadership in women's sports looks like in 2025. It's not about controlling the narrative. It's about embracing it. It's about supporting the people who built the platform, not dismissing them the second they speak up. The players have evolved. The culture has evolved. The game has evolved. Kathy Engelbert hasn't. And that's why Adam Silver has no choice but to act. This isn't just a WNBA scandal anymore. It's an NBA problem, too. The WNBA is tied to the NBA's credibility, its branding, its structure. Silver doesn't just have the power to remove Engelbert. He now has the responsibility to do it. Because the longer she stays, the more credibility the entire system loses. And let's be honest, the next commissioner will be stepping into a wounded league, a fractured culture, a locker room full of players who are tired of being told to wait for change that never comes. That commissioner will need to lead with transparency, humility, and actual basketball knowledge, not corporate jargon and top-down policies. That's why names like Nancy Lieberman and Sandy Brondello are resonating. They're not opportunists. They're not outsiders. They understand the game. They respect the players. And most importantly, the players trust them. Lieberman, in particular, stands out as someone who has walked every path, from player to coach to commentator to mentor. She has the credibility, the voice, and the moral authority to bring players back to the table. That's what the league needs now. Not a PR bandage, not a rebranding campaign. Actual change, a reset that starts from the top, with leadership players believe in. Because right now, under Kathy Engelbert, the league is unrecognizable. It's not progressive. It's not player first. It's not what it claims to be. It's a league run by fear of disruption instead of excitement for growth. And that fear has cost Engelbert everything. So what's next? She can step down now and give the league a chance to rebuild. Or she can drag it down with her. The players have spoken. The fans are demanding it. The media has made it clear. And Silver? His silence won't last much longer. The end of this chapter is already written. Now it's just a matter of how long Engelbert chooses to delay the inevitable. Let's talk about it in the comments. Do you think Engelbert's leadership has permanently damaged the WNBA? Can the league recover with the right replacement? And should Adam Silver take immediate action to protect what's left of the league's credibility? Subscribe for more breaking down the biggest moments in sports, power, and public accountability, because this story isn't over. Not by a long shot.